Got back from Summer Game Fest Playdays, and I have a lot of games to go over, and I've been wanting to make sure I get these words out there and share my thoughts and impressions on these games so that you, the viewer, also kind of get a sense of like, what was that game like, what's going on with it. And then one of the ones I wanted that was like first on my agenda was Blood Dungeon by the Messhof team. If you're familiar with this team, they have recently done Wheel World. You may know them also from their prior work with Nidhogg 1 and 2. They've also worked on Fly Wrench. And Blood Dungeon is a crazy one. It was very silly, kind of like the onset. It is a vampire survivor genre-esque type of game. You're pretty much trying to go all the way, like run around the level as much as you can. The added switch up to it is that it's not just like an open terrain area. The take here is a little bit more of, hey, what if we also had that mixed with a platformer? So you have like a confined space that it varies. There's a bunch of different maps, and you'll run around and run into all different monsters, and the longer you progress, the more you level, the more elaborate and things escalate. And the biggest thing I can say for it is this team knows so well how to capture flow state and like getting you into a kind of a momentum based, just once you find your rhythm, you're just going. This time, the big thing of it for me is it's much more on the silly side of that. I feel like Wheel World very much was on the more relaxed, like, hey, soothing, hey, relaxing. You're just gliding through the world on your cycle and everything, and it does it wonderfully. I spoke to it earlier in some of my videos earlier this year, and how much that game was just so much of like, I just want to experience and not care about whether there's an end or not. In Blood Dungeon, I was so much of like, man, I'm just caught up in the moment of like the franticness, the silliness, the zaniness, and that kind of like from top down showed. From the music, it catches at a very catchy beat, keeps a kind of a rhythm to it, almost has like a certain beats per minute to what type of music they're playing, and then the franticness of the character animation. It's somewhat reminiscent of like Nidhogg, kind of the looser kind of animation style to it, but with I think cranked up even more. And I think that added to the silliness and franticness of it, because it always feels like these characters are just like, I'm just kind of zoning through this area, blasting away and doing whatever. And then you go into, as you're playing, you're collecting blood. Like you kill these things and you gather their blood, and then it's like, oh, you got enough, now you level. If you're not, that's how kind of a vampire survivor kind of game goes. But the silliness of that comes too with like the abilities you'll get. It reminded me a ton of like Cyanide and Happiness and Exploding Kittens. If you know that sense of humor, this felt adjacent to that in a lot of ways, and in the best ways. There were so many power-ups that it just felt like, yeah, this thing, fire out your butt. Or this thing, you can fly and run around and your arms will wiggle and worm and squirm in weird and uncomfortable ways. One of the characters is just like a buff naked guy. There's nothing that's shown or anything, but it's just like these little sprites and pixelated artwork that just, it adds that silly, funky, frantic pace of it all. I didn't want to take my eyes off the screen. Kind of going back to that flow state, I felt like it was so colorful, so vibrant, so much going on. I had to remind myself to like blink and take care, just make sure I'm doing everything I need to be doing and pacing myself. But I loved it. You start with 9 starting characters that you can pick from. I said there was like one guy. They each have a different attribute. There's the default guy. There's some guys that move faster. There's some guys that hit harder. There's some guys that just have flying on the onset. And so you have a variety of these different things. It's going to be in early access, I believe, soon. I'm going to check that right now. But Blood Dungeon. I highly recommend you wishlist it if you can. It's on Steam. There is a demo out now that you can check out. It was there playable both on console and PC and on Steam Deck. They had a Steam Deck on hand to play. It is coming soon. And yeah, the demo's out now. So I just wanted to share kind of like what you can get into and what the silliness of it is. One thing I did like that was kind of a nice added touch towards the end of a run, I was able to go through one whole level, and then at the end of it, you kind of face this big, silly, or crazy boss that you run into. You try to take it down a health bar. And once you do, or whether you do or whether you don't, even if you die, the map kind of like pauses, shows you your score, and you're able to see your pathing through that whole level. whether you stuck primarily to one corner, whether you traversed the whole thing, whether you kind of did loops, or whether you just kind of like frantically, you can see the whole thing laid out almost like a screenshot snapshot. And I had this power that let me and potentially other things around me teleport to random locations of the map. So when I looked at my map, you see just all this zany kind of like movement. I was trying to scuttle around, kite some enemies left and right, but then if these portals would show up, and I sometimes would aim for them, and other times I just happenstance run into them, just because I was like, oh, that's my only angle. And you just see a straight line to the other side of the map, and then a little bit of the same thing, a straight line. So you'd see these just like darts across the whole thing, and I like that chaotic kind of controlled chaos. Is the best way for me to describe it. Of like, how do you capture that? How do you experience that? Where that run is not going to be the same as the next run, and that was really cool to see. Again, the power-ups were cool. The character selection was really neat. I like what they're doing. It feels very much like kind of like hey, we're making something you can easily just jump in for one round and jump out. You can play a little bit. Again, if you like that sort of gameplay, it can be very addictive. It can be very easy to jump in and out of. And I very much think this is one of the ones that's going to you stand out in a lot of its own ways, from the total package of what it's bringing, from the silliness to the chaotic vibrancy to the just fluidity that they are so well at doing over at Messhof. They know how to get you in that flow state really well, and I admire them for that, no matter what style of game, whether, like I said, whether it's Nidhogg, Wheel World, or now Blood Dungeon. But demo's out, give it a shot, wishlist if you like it, but let me know what you think. If you get a chance to play the demo, I'm really curious what others think of this. There's a few different kind of Vampire Survivor likes that I've enjoyed, their takes on it. There's like the Deep Rock Galactic one, there's Vampire Survivor proper, and there's like so many others. They all have a unique twist and take, and I think that's always fun to see, is like, how do you change a formula? How do you expand on a genre? And I think Blood Dungeon is expanding in this genre in a really cool and interesting way. I'll leave you with one last little bit of anecdote that I learned from the lead developer there. He was sharing that the original kind of idea for this game started as something that like, oh, I want to make something like a Contra type of game where it's a side-scrolling kind of jump platforming a little bit, but then some aspects of that weren't quite working out, and it naturally just started to evolve into, I want to go more this direction, and it just morphed into, what if it's an enclosed space that you can do all this stuff in? And I think the natural direction of things led him to flow into this space and make this game. So anyway, let me know what you think. I really, this is one of the standouts for me at Playdays. I was recommending it to everyone I could, and I'm excited to play more of it. I only got to do like one and a half runs when I was there, so gotta check that out. But catch you guys on the next save point. We'll have more videos for you soon for Playdays impressions.